You take a break because you're tired. You sit down, scroll through your phone, maybe get a snack. 20 minutes later, you go back to work. And somehow, you feel exactly the same, maybe worse. This happens all the time. You follow the advice. You step away from your desk. You rest. But the rest doesn't work. And you start to wonder if maybe you're doing breaks wrong, or if you're just someone who can't recharge properly. But that's not what's happening. The problem isn't that you're bad at resting. The problem is that most breaks aren't designed to address what actually made you tired in the first place. And until you understand that, breaks will keep failing you in ways that feel confusing and personal. Let's start with what we think a break is supposed to do. We assume that if we stop working, our energy comes back. That rest is the opposite of effort, and that stepping away automatically reverses whatever drain happened before. It sounds logical. It feels true. We've been told this our entire lives. But research on cognitive fatigue tells a different story. When your brain gets tired, it's usually not because you've run out of energy in a general sense. It's because specific mental systems have been overused. Attention, decision-making, emotional regulation, impulse control, these all have limits, and they don't all recover at the same speed or in the same way. So when you take a break, what you do during that break matters more than the fact that you stopped. If the break doesn't give the overused system a chance to actually rest, you won't feel restored. You'll just feel like you paused, like you hit stop on a video but left everything else running in the background. Here's a common example. You spend 2 hours answering emails, managing requests, switching between tasks. You feel drained. So you take a break and check your phone. You scroll through messages, browse social media, maybe read a few headlines. Then you go back to work. That break didn't help because your brain was tired from processing information and making small decisions. And during the break, you kept doing exactly that. You just moved the demand from your laptop to your phone. The system that needed rest never got it. The fatigue stayed exactly where it was. Or think about this. You've been in back-to-back meetings all morning. You're exhausted from listening, responding, managing how you come across. So you sit quietly at your desk and try to relax. But your mind is still running through what was said, what you should have said, what's coming next. You're physically still, but mentally nothing has changed. The effort was social and emotional, and sitting alone doesn't automatically turn that off. The break existed in time, but the recovery didn't happen. Your body stopped moving, but your brain kept working. This is where it gets uncomfortable. A lot of popular break advice treats rest like a reset button. Walk around, stretch, drink water, step outside. And yes, those things can help, but they help with physical stillness and blood flow. They don't necessarily help with what happens when your brain has been working in a specific demanding way for too long. If your fatigue is coming from sustained focus, a break that involves more focus won't fix it. If it's coming from decision overload, a break where you keep deciding what to look at, read, or think about won't either. Rest has to match the type of tired you actually are. And most of the time, we don't even know what type that is. We just know we're tired. So we do what feels like a break. And when it doesn't work, we assume we didn't do it right. And here's the part most people don't realize. Some kinds of mental fatigue take a long time to recover from. Longer than a 10-minute break. Longer than lunch. Longer than an evening. If you've spent all day switching tasks, regulating frustration, suppressing distraction, or holding your attention on things that don't interest you, your brain doesn't bounce back just because you stopped for a bit. Studies on ego depletion and cognitive load show that certain kinds of effort leave a residue. You can rest and still feel it. That's not a sign that rest failed. It's a sign that what you were doing was harder than a short pause can undo. The demand was real. The cost was real. And recovery takes longer than we're usually willing to admit. So you might take a break and feel nothing. Not because the break was too short or poorly spent, but because the demand was bigger than the recovery window you gave it. And that's not something you can always fix in the moment. Sometimes the tiredness is deeper than the time you have to address it. This also means that the feeling of not being rested doesn't always mean you need a different kind of break. Sometimes it just means the work you're doing is continuously taxing in a way that no break, however well designed, can keep up with. That's a structural problem, not a personal one. It's not about optimizing your rest. It's about recognizing that some work is simply demanding beyond what rest can immediately restore. Think about a typical workday. You start with focused work. Then you switch to communication. Then you deal with an unexpected problem. Then you make lunch decisions. Then you sit in a meeting where you have to stay alert but not speak much. Then you go back to your original task. But now it feels harder. Each of those activities uses your brain differently, and each one depletes a different resource. Focused work drains sustained attention. Communication drains social processing. Problem solving drains working memory. Decision making drains executive control. Passive attention in meetings drains something else entirely. When you finally take a break, which system are you resting? The answer is probably none of them fully, because the break itself, scrolling, choosing what to eat, thinking about the rest of your day, that also requires effort. Different effort, maybe, but effort nonetheless. Let's be clear about what this doesn't mean. It doesn't mean breaks are useless. It doesn't mean you shouldn't try to rest, and it definitely doesn't mean you're broken or doing something wrong. It just means that rest is more specific than we've been taught to believe. A break from looking at a screen is not the same as a break from thinking hard. A break from talking is not the same as a break from emotional management. A break from sitting is not the same as a break from decision-making. They all matter, but they're not interchangeable. And treating them like they are is why so many breaks feel empty. And that's why you can follow all the right advice, take all the breaks, do everything you're supposed to do, and still feel like you're running on empty. Because the advice assumes all tiredness is the same, but it's not. Tiredness has layers, it has sources. And sometimes those sources don't line up with the solutions we've been given. You're not failing at rest. You're just trying to recover from something that takes more than stepping away for a few minutes. And recognizing that difference is the first step toward understanding why breaks don't always work the way you hope they will. This isn't about finding the perfect break routine. It's not about doing more or doing better. It's about seeing that tiredness has texture, it has sources, it has depth, and sometimes the only real answer is that what you're doing is hard, and your brain is responding exactly the way it's supposed to. The exhaustion is real, the effort is real, and the fact that a 15-minute break doesn't fix it doesn't mean you're doing rest wrong. It just means the demand was bigger than the rest could match, and that's okay. That's not failure. That's just how it works sometimes. You're not resting wrong. You're just tired in a way that's harder to fix than you were told, and understanding that might not make the tiredness go away, but it can make it feel a little less like something you're failing at, because you're not.